welcome back to the MindBodyFood kitchen. Today we're going to be making some mini Christmas pudding balls. Now, traditional Christmas pudding is chock full of fruit, but it also has quite a bit of sugar. So my version of mini Christmas pudding balls is no added sugar and simply the natural sugars, the fructose, in a variety of different fruit. So let's get started. So to make our mini Christmas pudding balls, we've got a dry ingredients list and then we've got a wet ingredients list. So the only thing that you're going to need for this is a food processor. You'll need the big large bowl of the food processor, and if you have an S blade or if you have a quad blade like this one, that's perfect. So before we put them in, this is what we need to do. We need to get 1.5 cups of walnuts, 5 dried figs, and also 5 dried medjool dates. Now, these are the two things that you're going to chop up a little bit before we put them into the processor, just to make it a little bit easier by the time we add everything else. Now, what we've also got is 1 cup of dried cranberries. We've got a 1/4 cup of dried black currants. We've got 1/2 cup of desiccated coconut. And then we have some spices. So we've got a teaspoon of cinnamon, which I absolutely love. I probably use it every day. Fantastic for regulating blood sugar. We've also got in there a big heap teaspoon of ginger, ground ginger powder. And the last spice is actually a combination. It's Chinese 5 spice. So there's a whole teaspoon of Chinese 5 spice in there. And that is just going to go beautifully with our last dry ingredients, which is the zest of an orange. Now, I've used quite a large orange here. If you don't use orange, I would suggest using 2 lemons in place of the 1 zest of the orange. So this is our dry ingredients, and we're going to get started on this first into the food processor after we chop up our figs and our medjool dates. Up the figs and the dates, in they go. And now we simply add the rest of the dry ingredients. In goes the cranberries, the walnuts, coconut, black currants, spices. And finally, zest of an orange. Just even smelling it like that is beautiful. I want to show you. So once everything's ready to go, pulse away. Now that just looks and smells like an absolute Christmas pudding. We don't want to overprocess it too much at this stage because we've still got to put our wet ingredients in. So once you've finished giving a few good pulses so that it's really nicely just broken down and starting to stick together, that's when we're going to add in a 1/4 cup of coconut oil. We're going to then put in 2 to 3 tablespoons of white tahini and then a good capful of vanilla extract. Now, we actually make our own vanilla extract using a base alcohol like gin or vodka and putting about 3 to 4 lovely, beautiful, long vanilla beans in there, cutting them open so that the seeds come out and leaving it to sit in a dark place for about 3 months. So putting something like this in, it just is a little special touch. Now you don't have to, but it does actually help for consistency and evenness of the ingredients. Just give that coconut oil, tahini and vanilla extract a little bit of a stir and you've got this beautiful creamy paste. It's actually something that is very similar to a raw salty caramel tart base that I have in my raw chocolate desserts ebook. So once you've done that, just pour it in And we're up to the final pulsing and blending. And then we're ready to go. A couple of pulses and then let it process until everything is nice and mixed in and sticky. Now, always a good way to check to make sure it's done is just to pick up a little bit of the mixture, press it between your fingers. It's sticky, it's staying firm, perfect. All that's left to do now is to roll out a tablespoon of the mixture and put it onto a baking tray with baking paper. Now we're up to the fun bit. So this is what we're aiming for, a beautiful round little fruit ball. It just looks gorgeous. There's so many different colors coming through there, and it really does smell and look like a little mini Christmas ball, especially when we add on our little touches later. Now, what I like to do is just get a proper measuring tablespoon, just to make it easier to scoop out about approximately the same amount so we've got similar sized balls. Now, you can save from dirtying another bowl and simply use your food processor bowl, but just make sure you take the sharp bits out first. And then we just roll. Take a long time if I keep dancing. Alright, so on a serious note, I do recommend that you use fruit that is sulfur and preservative free. You want to try and minimize the amount of junk that you're putting into your body. So just keep that in mind when you're purchasing your dried fruit. And if you do store some of your dried fruit in the fridge, it's a really good idea to just let it sit out so that it's room temperature. It just makes it a lot easier chopping it up and putting it in to mix in with all the other fruit. I think this ball's a bit too big. That's good. Yum, yum, yum. When you try these, there are so many different flavors coming through because you've got those beautiful spices mixed with all different types of varying degrees of sweetness and color with the fruit. And then you've got that beautiful orange zest. That citrus just goes beautifully with the fruit and the spices. It's delicious. This has to be one of my better inventions. Actually, it's one of my favorite inventions. Depending on how close to the tablespoon you stay when you're making these balls, you'll get about 32 to 36 balls, which is quite a lot. You can store them in the fridge or the freezer and they'll keep well for quite some time. Okay, and we're done. Now, I ended up with 30 balls. There's a couple that are a little bit bigger and I may have ate a couple. So, all we do now is put these into the fridge or freezer, depending on what you want to do with them after. Whether you want to put creamy white sauce over the top, putting it, layering it over the top to really give you that look, that effect of a mini Christmas pudding with that beautiful white creamy sauce over the top. And then decorating it with maybe a pistachio or some cranberry, even a goji berry. Or if you'd like to actually enrobe them in dark chocolate. Completely up to you. The recipe is all together with both instructions for enrobing the dark chocolate as well as making the creamy white sauce and how to layer it over the top. That is it, mini Christmas pudding balls. They taste and smell like mini Christmas puddings and they're so much healthier for you. enjoy. Please share, and if you make them, please send me a picture so I can post it and share it on my social media. Come and have a look on Facebook at MindBodyFood, or come and have a look at the website under the food tab, which has all my recipes in the one place. Take care of you, and we'll see you next time. So here we come to enrobing our beautiful mini Christmas pudding balls. So all you need to do is melt down some good quality dark chocolate, put it into a nice tall cup, just makes it a lot easier. Pick your balls up, drop them in, coat them in the chocolate. It's best to use a fork. And when you pick it up, just drop it down a couple of times to get any excess off. My chocolate's getting a little cool now, so it's starting to thicken. So you can't have the chocolate too hot, it does have to be a little bit cooler. And then you just drop it down, just like that, really easy. And continue until you finish. So this is what is called enrobing in chocolate, and this is one thing that you can do with your mini Christmas pudding balls. And the other one is the creamy white sauce.